Well, hey everyone, welcome to Module 5, Section 2, Intro to the Discipleship Circle. And so in this video, we're going to be sharing with you one of what I think is one of the most effective tools that we've used to walk people through big and small discipleship moments. And in all truth, this tool can be used in basically every situation of life, but we have found that it works particularly well in a discipleship moment that's happening with another person around you. All right, so first, we want to give credit to 3D Ministries, or 3DM, which was a ministry out of Sheffield, England, and they began to experiment a while back, many decades ago, with the idea of the medium-sized missional community model for a church. And so a missional community usually consists of between maybe 30 and 70 people, and their church community there in northern England grew to several thousand through this model. And so Mike Breen and his wife then moved to South Carolina, where they moved the headquarters of 3DM, and they continue to build systems to help churches engage in discipleship in their own communities, really around the world. Honestly, you should look them up and just kind of see what they're all about, because they have a lot of really great material and content. But we got connected with some of their stuff many years ago, and we started to really unpack some of the tools that they have used, such as the Discipleship Circle. And so I wanted to give that credit and acknowledge that this is not a tool that we have come up with on our own, but it's one that we have found highly useful and effective and have continued to adapt and develop in our own ministry here in Seattle. So again, just to kick things off, have you ever had a really big decision, a big life moment decision, like not a should I eat vanilla or chocolate ice cream kind of decision, but a decision like, should I move? Should I take this new job? Is she or he the right person for me? Big life decisions. How'd you make those decisions? Was it some really well thought out process that you went through, or was it a kind of like a shoot from the hips kind of a process? I think we all have different ways that we make decisions in life, and maybe for some of us, those processes are more thought out, and then for others, they are kind of more instinctive. But the point is that we tend to have a way that we come to decisions that we tend to stick by in life. But what if a person doesn't have that ability to really process decisions and make the best call for themselves? And then I think even more important question is, how do we help people discern the big God moments of their lives that could be leading them to important parts of their own spiritual development? When you think of the timeline of a person's life, there are moments along the course of their timeline that show up as what we have called God moments. Moments where God is doing something important in that person's life to either shape them further or to cause a bit of a course correction to occur in their life. And so here is the timeline of a person's life. And into their, this goes on to the unknown future. And these God moments are defined as an X, where something happens and God is trying to get their attention. The God moment can realistically be anything. It could be big life moments that we just kind of mentioned earlier, career changes, relationships, moving, kids, buying a home, whatever it is. Or it could be smaller things like a deeper engagement in church community, leading a small group, a more focused desire to lead another person relationally or spiritually, to disciple someone. Whatever the moment is, the point of your discipleship relationship with that person is that you will more readily recognize those moments than typically that other person perhaps will. This is why you were discipling them, right? So often in our lives, we let these big God moments just kind of pass us by, untouched or unengaged. And this doesn't make you, or anyone else for that matter, a bad person. It is simply the reality of our humanity and the busyness that we have created for ourselves at times. We miss a lot of these moments. And as a discipler, your job is to catch those moments and walk people through this discipleship circle to help them get a little bit closer to the calling or the intention of God for their lives. I mean, that's really what a God moment is. It is God getting your attention in some big or small way to hopefully shift enough of your life towards His will and His intention for you. So what is an example of a God moment? I want to give you just a big example and then a smaller one. First, COVID has been a God moment for the church at large. A moment where God was using what took place in the world to give us an opportunity to reassess, to take stock, to think big and dream of new beginnings. You know, some people and churches, I think, took the opportunity while others let that opportunity pass them by. But the last 2 years were not arbitrary nonsense. Now, I'm not saying that God caused COVID or any of that, but God uses context and our ability to provide us moments and opportunities to draw closer to Him, but also to realign our lives with His intention for us. And COVID was a moment for the global church. A smaller example comes from my own church. There's this guy in our church, and he asked me if we could begin a Bible study together. And so he and I had developed a plan for what that looks like. And that's a moment of him discerning a call to grow, and he was looking for guidance in that process. How do we study the Bible together? So those are God moments. What do you do then as a discipler with those God moments? The rest of this module is going to unpack each portion of the discipleship circle more fully, but I want to give you a brief overview of the entire circle and how it is such an effective discipleship tool. And so once you've identified a God moment with someone, the first thing that you want to do is listen. We went over the power and the presence of listening in module 3, and so this is where you're going to use a lot of those tools to hear what the moment was for the person, how they perceived the question or the issue at hand, and what their initial feeling was, and what was the best step forward for them. The second step is to assess what you heard, and this is an important step because there are moments where we listen to a person and then immediately we just want to jump into solving their problem or giving them our best advice. But assessing means that we pause and we reflect on what it was that we heard that the person is wrestling with. I once had a guy in our church ask me a pretty deep question about angels and the spiritual realm, and I was a little bit confused on what it was that he was actually really wanting to discover or needed me to kind of engage in with him. So I listened more and I asked some clarifying questions. I resisted giving him just those pat answers that would have appeased me if I was the one that was asking the question. And instead I told him, look, I appreciate this moment and I appreciate your questions, but I need some time to reflect. And then I asked if I could just kind of get back with him in a couple of days. See, the reason taking time to assess what a person is wrestling with or their God moment is that it gives you space to really approach the moment in order to help the person. I think sometimes we get excited and we just want to answer the way that we would need or give advice that would be helpful for us. And a lot of times those answers don't actually help the person. So you step back and you assess. Now look, not every God moment or discipleship moment like this is going to require you to remove yourself for a few days to reflect and assess. Sometimes assessing will honestly only take a matter of minutes. The point is to be able to pull back and look at what is being asked and what you are being invited into so that you can develop a strategy that is best for the person that you're with. So the next thing is to do is you share or bring it into community. This may seem odd, but Laura's actually going to give you a video specifically on bringing discipleship moments into community and what we actually mean by that. But remember, discipleship is not you imparting all of your unlimited wisdom and knowledge on someone else. A lot of time you may not have a good answer or strategy in mind, and you're going to need some help coming up with that strategy. And so you bring the question into community by utilizing your own discipleship web, which then will give you some resources to then go back and develop a strategy for the person that you are discipling. And again, Laura is going to have a video on this, and she's going to give you some really tangible examples of how this looks. So the next step is to then develop a plan for discerning this God moment with the person. One of the objectives for this entire one-to-one discipleship unit is to learn how to develop a plan. Plans for discernment and discipleship are highly specific to the person that you are with. There is not a one-size-fits-all plan of discipleship. You have to walk a person in their moment, not some perceived universal moment. And so once you then have the plan in place for discipleship and discerning the God moment, then you act on that plan. That seems fairly simple, doesn't it, right? Problem is that a lot of us regularly develop plans for things without actually ever executing those plans. I mean, honestly, how many dieting plans have you made for yourself that on paper they looked incredible? And then when it came to actually moving into executing that plan, you give up or you never even take that first step. And so developing a discipleship plan for someone is wonderful, but it does nothing if you don't act on it. The final step of the discipleship circle is to reflect. And this is deeply important because in this step you are asking the questions, what went well? What was confusing? What was missing? Did we actually make any progress? Reflecting gives you and the person that you're discipling the ability to decide whether or not the plan helped to achieve a deeper understanding, to reach a decision, or to bring a sense of Jesus' presence near. Without reflecting on how things went, there will be no way of knowing for sure if the book you used, or the tools that were given, or whatever your discipleship plan was, had any kind of meaningful effect. So that's the discipleship circle. But what's the point of the discipleship circle? Once you've walked people around this circle, what is the ultimate goal or expectation? Remember that the line that we drew is the timeline and the trajectory of a person's life. The point of walking people around the discipleship circle is to hopefully realign the trajectory of their lives to be just a little bit closer to the will and the calling of God for them. This is honestly what discipleship is all about. It's aligning our lives with Jesus so that we begin to look more and more like Him every day. Which is why it's important to remember that a person's trajectory towards Jesus is not your responsibility to manage. Your job in discipling someone is to share your own journey of aligning your life with Jesus. And then when you have moments where you can help a person consider more of Jesus, then you take those moments and you help them discover more of Jesus. But again, it's a journey that you are going on together in that discipling relationship. So in the next video, we want to share 3 examples of how we have used this discipleship circle with a person who's in the emerging faith category, the engaging faith category, and then the empowering faith category. Because then in Module 6, you're actually going to be using this tool in some conversations with people in your own context. And so that is the introduction to the discipleship circle as a tool for discipling someone.